In the aftermath of Secretary of State Clinton's resolution of the treaty negotiations with Russia, President Obama has committed virtual treason by his defense of the drug running of the enemy forces which are pitted against the U.S. forces which Obama has placed in jeopardy, condemned to be the victims of the British drug-pushing agencies in Afghanistan, which are the base of support of the enemy there. This is an impeachable offense for virtual reason of Obama's protection of the logistical resources of the avowed foe in the Afghanistan conflict, clear grounds for impeachment. In that light, the pressing question is, who is responsible for the Moscow train bombings? Following the Moscow suicide bombing on March 29th, there was another suicide bombing attack early this morning in Dagestan. These recent attacks come on top of the bombing on the express train between St. Petersburg and Moscow at the end of last year. In the recent period, there was an outcry from Britain to place the blame for these attacks on the Russian government, particularly Prime Minister Vladimir Putin. However, these attacks must be denounced immediately as a British-directed offensive against the Russian government and an attempt to discredit the leadership of Prime Minister Vladimir Putin and Russian Railways Minister Vladimir Yakunin. So, while the British press urgently tries to shift the blame onto Putin and the Russian government, the question remains, what is the source of logistical support for these operations against Russia? Moreover, what's standing in the way of effectively dealing with this threat to Russia and other nations? Within the current administration, Hillary Clinton, representing the patriots in the institutions of the United States, has established a commitment to bringing the United States and Russia into closer collaboration through agreements typified by the recent negotiations around the START Treaty. This diplomatic push by Clinton during her tenure as Secretary of State is crucial for laying the cornerstone for a four-powers alliance, namely bringing into being a powerful partnership between Russia and the United States. Throughout Obama's presidency, the outstanding offer that Russia has placed on the table for collaboration between the two governments has been the war on drugs, an offer to begin to resolve the ongoing war in Afghanistan by putting an end to the massive drug operations and drug-funded terror occurring under protection from within that region. Russia is the country worst affected by Afghanistan's heroin exports, with 2.5 million drug addicts, 90% addicted to Afghan heroin, mostly in the age group of 18 to 40. The death rate has skyrocketed, and the spread of diseases, including HIV, AIDS, and hepatitis, have been steadily increasing. At the Russia-NATO meeting in Brussels on March 24th, Viktor Ivanov, the head of Russia's Federal Anti-Narcotics Service, put forward a proposal for the elimination of Afghan drug production as a basis for consolidating the efforts of Russia and NATO member states in the Afghanistan war. The first provision is to raise the status of the problem of the Afghan drug production and the trade to the status of a threat to global peace and security. Currently, the loss of 10,000 lives in NATO states as a result of Afghan heroin is 50 times higher than our military losses in that war. Ivanov demanded that the United States and its allies in Afghanistan engage with Russia in efforts to destroy Afghan opium, citing the upcoming 65th anniversary of the Allied victory against Hitler in World War II, and calling for a creation of a new broad coalition in the image of the Allied powers, only this time anti-drug instead of anti-Hitler. Following Ivanov's proposal, NATO refused to take up his recommendations. Why would they refuse? The British military has occupied and protected the largest opium-producing province in Afghanistan throughout the war. The British protected Helmand province through the massive opium production is the crucial source of finance for the Taliban insurgency, against whom American soldiers are being sent to fight and die. Eliminating this source of funding would disable the insurgency and dry out terror operations across the entire region. However, U.S. troops in the region have been told to stand down and avoid any interference with drug production. Since February, U.S. Marines have been advancing into Helmand province, but they have told the villagers there that they were under orders not to touch the poppy crop, which is blossoming this month. The refusal by the Obama White House to take any action to stop the opium production and crack down on the drug money being channeled towards terrorism has brought the Russian Foreign Ministry to the point of accusing the United States of conniving with Afghanistan's opium producers in a statement that they issued on March 28th. But it's not the United States, however. It's President Obama conniving with the British Empire itself, acting as a British agent to protect the Afghan drug lords using the military of the United States, and strictly forbidding any war against British opium. The British depend on this president continuing this war to run cover for the dope trade, for the financing of international terrorism, and for the ultimate destruction of the United States through a long land war in Asia. This is the way the British Empire operates. The British have used drugs and terrorism for centuries to destabilize nations that refuse to submit themselves to the empire. Through the British East India Company and the British Foreign Office, the British Empire has sponsored terrorism in Asia from the Opium War in China to the Great Game of Central Asia, precisely because they realized that a unified bloc of powerful nations, oriented towards the American system, could destroy the power of their empire. Today we know that the British Empire's drug terrorist capability is centered in their alliance with the royal family of Saudi Arabia. It is this British-Saudi alliance which is behind the core of all the drug and terrorist operations in Greater Southwest and Central Asia. The British and Saudi governments have been protecting and harboring terrorist groupings, particularly of the radical religious Wahhabite sect within Saudi Arabia, which are then able to direct and deploy terrorist operations directed against targeted nations. We saw this with the bombings in Mumbai, India last year, directed as an attack against India, and in the attacks of September 11, 2001, directed against the United States. So everything that we are now seeing with the attacks on Russia points to the exact same type of British-directed operation aimed at discrediting the Russian government, including Prime Minister Vladimir Putin and his key ally in the Russian government, Railways Minister Vladimir Yakunin. And with the continuation of the Afghanistan war and the refusal to shut down the opium trade, Barack Obama is protecting the source for these attacks. Lyndon LaRouche demanded that the word be put out in his name. President Obama is essentially protecting the logistical base for terrorism. This is virtual treason by Obama. He has protected the drug pushers in Afghanistan, which is the logistical base for the war in Afghanistan. The president is defending these drug pushers and sending U.S. troops to die in order to defend this operation. Obama is a drug on history and a drug on morality. Get rid of him. This is impeachable. Without the cover from Obama and the British, the drug runners don't stand a chance. Without the financial support, the terrorists don't have support. So here's what we have to do. You want to end the war in Afghanistan? You want to protect yourself from terror? You want to save your nation from a long, wasting land war in Asia? Impeach Obama. Shut down this British-Saudi drug money network. Let the true patriots in the United States accept the offer from Russia for a partnership in fighting this war on drugs, and through the collaborative alliance between the United States and the great powers of Asia, force the entire British Empire out of existence.